Okay, we should be recording now. So I want to welcome everyone to our Thursday seminar today. We're very grateful to have with us Isha Chadha, who is an alum of our program. She graduated with her MS in Food Safety and Technology from IIT way back in 2011. So you're an old timer now, Isha. We're very glad that you could come back and visit with us today. In addition to her degree with us, Isha has a Bachelor of Technology in Chemical Engineering from India. She has also a Master of Jurisprudence in Global Food Law, which is rather unique. I think you're one of the first guests we've had who have had that degree. So we look forward to your experience in that area. Isha has worked in several different positions in the food industry. She's been with Nestle in the pizza division. She's been with the Manel Milling Company in quality assurance. And at the moment, she is the Senior Quality Innovation Specialist with Nestle in Ohio. So I am very grateful, Isha, to have you with us today. I'm going to turn the time over to you. Isha has said that everyone is welcome and encouraged to ask questions during the presentation. If you'd like to do that, just go ahead and raise your hand and we will make sure that you can speak, you can unmute yourself. If you're part of the class, we would ask that you please turn your camera on so that Isha can see your faces. It's a lot easier to have a conversation if we can see the people that we're speaking with. All right. And Isha, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the time over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Todd. It's great to meet you and see you after a very long time. Good afternoon, Dr. Britt. Great to see you again, too. Thank you so much for having me here today and for giving me an opportunity to come back to our college and, being in that position where I can share my journey, my experiences from my education and from my work background. And I hope that the students will also find it helpful. And like Todd said, we were just having a discussion that I would really like it to be an engaging conversation. So if all of the students, I don't know if you are going to graduate this year or if you are in your first year, or if you have any questions, please feel free to, ask your questions and I'll be happy to share any resources, even, after the session today. So real quick, I'm going to minimize the screen here for now. And so I just wanted to go over my quick background. And as Todd just mentioned, my education background in chemical engineering, food safety and technology, and global food law. I think my education has had a great impact on where I am today. It has been a step-by-step journey. It was not just the education, but the people I met during my, my time at IFISH and IIT built the foundation of my scientific education. So the projects that I worked on gave me the confidence to establish, further connections in the food industry. So I'll start by talking about my experience at the Nestle Pizza Division in Northbrook, Illinois. So as soon as I graduated from IFISH back in 2011, I came across this opportunity through Kelly Scientific Resources that the Nestle company had posted back then. And of course, I was on a student visa because I came from India in 2009. So I used my student visa to work at Nestle at that time for a year and a half. And it was my first job. And I did a lot of the QA roles and responsibilities at the pilot plant. So they had a pilot plant over there where they made pizza products under the brands Tombstones, DiGiorno, California Pizza Kitchen for consumer, for trials, so not for like retail sales. So I was responsible for making sure I had a HACCP plan for that site, allergen management program for that site. So that was in collaboration with the food safety team. So that first job, that first opportunity right out of college was very, set the foundations for my food safety and quality background. I learned so much over there. And I think I don't know how many students in this session have are on student visas, but then you have to be mindful of making sure that you're looking for an opportunity where you can work full time. And that's when I moved to Virginia for my QA manager job at the Manel Milling Company. And again, I think as a student, sometimes few people, maybe not everyone, may have a hesitation that how can I apply for a job if I don't have an experience yet? But trust me, a lot of the food industries are looking for that passion and attitude. I didn't understand. Excuse me, are looking for that passion and attitude, and it's not that how much experience you bring, because sometimes a lot of experienced people may not have that great attitude towards the work, towards the company, or to the team. So when I was getting interviewed for the Manel Milling company, I ordered a book from Amazon about flour mill, and I read and prepared as much as I could during my interview stages that I was going through at that time. And then I think the hiring managers know that this is a newly graduate. They've only worked in the industry for a year and a half, so they have programs in place that they will hire you and they will help you with your onboarding. But you have to do the homework, you have to do the research, and make sure you're passionate to do that work. So that's how I got my first job, which was a QA manager position, and it came with a lot of responsibility. So the site in Virginia used to ship 20 trucks of flour every day to some of the major bakeries in Southeast USA. And if we had one complaint, it was a dollar cost associated with those complaints. And then you would get calls from corporate office that, we have complaints. And it's not just the dollar value impact, but there is also competition in the industry, not just flour mills, but any food industry you go in, there is competition. And these days, I'm sure you're all aware, consumer is your main key. If you have a bad name or bad publicity through social media or through recalls, you can lose a lot of your business. So everything that you do in the food industry is very critical, very important, and directly related to the consumer. So make sure that you're mindful of all that. And I'm sure everybody is very technical savvy these days, so you're following the key trends and key recalls in the food industries these days. So again, with that responsibility, I was making sure that I was aligning with my managers to first build my capability, because I was also managing a team of 5 technicians, and I was also working on their development throughout their career journey as well. And then the businesses changed. The business was acquiring a lot of companies. So from 2018 to 2020, I worked as a corporate QA coordinator, where I supported 9 locations and helped them integrate with the FSMA requirements on food safety plan, food defense plan, food fraud plan. So the reason why I'm talking about here is that sometimes the companies are busy with their own business objectives. So you as a person have to make sure that you're building your own capability. So these days, there are several resources that are available to you. Go on the FDS website. They have so many programs that are free to download. So for example, back in 2017, they had published a food safety plan, a food defense plan, and they had this entire training that was available for free. They had these programs which I downloaded from FDA's website, and I used for my company to match the template from the FDA's template, which was a huge success for us in the BRC audits. And then once I accomplished my objectives at the Manel Milling Company, I was looking for more challenges. And I had stayed in contact with my previous managers and colleagues at Nestle. And at some point, I think they dissolved the business in Northbrook, and they brought a lot of the business to Solon offices. So when there was an opportunity available, I was very fortunate to get interviewed and come back to Nestle here. And since March 2020, I have been supporting the frozen food business here. So my role is Senior Quality Innovation Specialist, and let me elaborate on what I do here. I support the product developers who make products like Life Cuisine, Lean Cuisine, DiGiorno, Tombstones, CPK, Hot Pockets, the Deli Rich sandwiches. So when they work on these recipes, we onboard materials from different vendors from US markets or outside of US markets. So I support the product developers in doing the due diligence with respect to food safety, so making sure we are onboarding safe ingredients. So conducting PHACCPs, risk assessments, reviewing the allergen information to ensure we are not going to bring in any new allergen information. So this role was very challenging. And as I'm speaking and as I'm going on, I just want to make sure, I just noticed that I saw there's a message in the chat. If you're a student in the seminar, okay, just, okay. Any questions so far, or everyone? Any? Okay. So I'll just keep going on if that's okay. So this role was very challenging in the beginning because this was a new position within the company. They wanted to create a position that could support the product developers in onboarding the raw materials. So in the last 3 years, I have worked with the businesses to identify where we can add support, to build the resources, to build the capability building for the product developers. Each team has a group of 5 or 6 product developers here. So it wasn't like I came in, someone trained me, and then you are set from there. I think what I'm trying to share here in complete honesty, visibility, and transparency is that once you are ready for applying for jobs, make sure that you leverage the resources that are available to you or which are available at our university and college. And then just go and apply for the job, be confident, because there is going to be a learning phase for you. And the companies support you with an onboarding time period. Like they will set an onboarding time period for you for the first 3 months. They will give you the networking information that you can reach out to the subject matter experts in quality, regulatory. So you build your capability first, and then you start adding value to the business. And I know I started talking about my career here, and in my personal life, I got married in 2016. I also have a 5-year-old daughter. She's at school right now and will be back home soon. I think I have 30 minutes here. But that's a little bit about me, and I could go on and on because I feel like I get very passionate. And I still, at Nestle, we have these sessions where our leaders organize sessions. They talk about sponsorship, they talk about mentorship, they talk about allyship, and I learn so much from those sessions. Like, you know, it's not just I think there was a time period when I used to just focus on my subjects, that, okay, if I did well here, I'm just going to get a job. Make sure you're also networking. And by networking, it's not just adding people on LinkedIn or just saying hello to someone. Talk to them and try to gauge, you know, what they've worked on. Maybe you will build a connection for 2 years later from now. You may have to go back to them and you may have questions about thermal validation. So you're just building your contacts in the industry. And this is what I've learned, the value of networking in the industry. I see there's a question.
So I put my hand up. You mentioned networking, and so could you speak to how you go about building up your network, especially since you were someone who came from overseas as an international student and you didn't have any contacts here, right? How do you go from nothing to building that network so that it's useful to you, like you're talking about?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a very slow process first, because I used to be maybe I'm still a little bit of an introvert person. Like I'll talk to someone, but only for a topic, or, you know, even at college, I would talk to my professors or friends about some work. So by nature, I'm a little bit of an introvert. I have to make a lot of effort even to speak here, but I feel like if I'm going to help someone, I'm going to do it, right? Because I've been helped before. So I think in the initial years it was slow, and then when I was the QA manager at the flour mill, I started using LinkedIn a lot more, and I saw, okay, there are so many other QA managers at the flour mills, and then at that site, I had an opportunity to go to the conferences that were relevant to the flour industry. So I met more QA managers there. I met more plant managers there. So we would connect over there and I would add them to my LinkedIn. And then I slowly noticed that there's a group for a certain, like, for serial chemists or for quality experts. And then they publish, their questions over there. And then, of course, I have this whole community from IIT, iFish, and the community of the network that we have. So anytime we have any updates on thermal validation, that's been very helpful for me. But that was something given to me. I didn't build that on my own. So I can't count IIT and iFish support that I did. But when I networked with QA managers and other people in the flour industry, I think that's when I started going out of my comfort zone and built my network on LinkedIn, staying in touch. So when you go back to conferences, you talk to them, you meet them. Then when I was pursuing my MJ degree, I met a lot of people during the class. And that's how I learned that you have so many resources available. So for example, I came across a project where we were exporting product to different countries, but as a company, we didn't have some data or information. And then I learned that you can go to Codex websites, download the pesticide residue data. You can go to the Codex website and download the international contaminants level. So that's how I went to the next step over there. And then when I came to Nestle, over here, networking is different for me. It's not just adding people on LinkedIn. So previously I was in a private company, which was a smaller company, like, very less than 100 people, including the corporate, and then other 400 people in the plant. But for Nestle, it's different type of networking over here. And I'm still networking because I haven't met everyone, because when I came here, COVID happened, and then we were remote for 2 years, and we've just started going back into office. So here networking means, okay, understanding who works in quality and how does my role have an impact on their role, and how does their work impact my role. So for example, if there are team members in quality who support the standard updates, that will affect something that I am onboarding as a material. So at that level, you have to understand how the business functions as well. Todd, I hope I didn't deviate from your question and I did answer, but I feel like sometimes I can be the opposite of an introvert and just go on and on.
No, that was great. So as we're now in as a conversation, this is an opportunity for everyone here to open up and ask any questions you have about the food industry, how someone might find a job, what goes on in particular roles that Isha has had. Please take advantage of her willingness to share, to open up and ask those questions.
Hi, Isha.
Hi, Uday.
I just have a quick question. So from your experience, you had working with a lot of different places. So when you transfer from one job to another job, what kind of issue you are facing, you were facing when you have a new environment, like work with new people, those kind of things?
That's a great question, and it brings back a lot of memories. So when I was in Chicago, I stayed at the Chicago campus, and Northbrook office was like almost 2 hours away. I did not have a car at that time, so I used to take the college shuttle to Union Station, take the train, and then take the office shuttle to get there. So it was a 2-hour commute in the morning, 2-hour commute in the evening. And then I liked my job, and I was thankful that I had that opportunity, right? And so I was saving some money, and I didn't want to spend on the car and everything. And that's what I did for a year and a half. But then when I moved to Virginia, it was a whole lot of different transition because I have no family here. My brother lives in Houston, but in Virginia, I had no family. So I came here. The company gave me temporary, what do you call it? Accommodation, sorry, temporary accommodation for 3 months. And then I had time to look for an apartment. And so it's sometimes you get homesick, it's not an easy process, but you just move on and stay connected with your family and friends. And my family and friends would visit me. So it's a little bit hard, like you're in a new environment. It's a little bit challenging, but then you make new friends. So I met a lot of more people in Virginia, and not just at work, but outside of work as well. And then my husband also moved there, and then we got married there. And then, so recently, the challenging part started after I got married, right? Because in my previous job, when I was a corporate QA coordinator, I got promoted. I was very happy. And I did realize that there would be a lot of travel, but I didn't realize it would be so much. So since I was supporting 9 locations, I was almost away from home Monday to Friday, and my daughter was a year old at that time. So for 6 months, I was in Ohio, and my family was back in Virginia. So that was also challenging, but we did it together as a family and as a team at work also, because that is something I wanted to pursue to move on to the next level. Because I had a feeling that if I stay here, and I'm not going to challenge or push myself or get outside of that comfort zone, I may not be able to achieve what I'm seeking for. So that was that 6 month of phase where everyone supported me. And then when I moved to Solon, Ohio, again, my family was still in Virginia, but then with COVID, we're able to remote workly now. So my family was also able to relocate here. And my 5-year-old daughter now does not want me to move again. She says we are done moving. We don't want to keep on moving and change homes. And I was shocked when she said that. Like, I thought she's happy that, she's getting to explore and move around. It should be fun for kids. But then it was a moment of realization for me that, she's a child, but she has feelings, emotions. She's sensing that things are changing around her, and that so I thought, okay. So in my current role, I don't have to travel a lot. So if there are occasional meetings, so once in a while I'll travel and go to either Arlington or to the factories, but it's not like a job requirement that I need to travel. So every time you change a job, there are so many factors that are outside of your control. But if you really want to do it, I think things will fall in place. Give it some time, don't give up. And then, find your energy from your family and friends, from your teachers. And I stay in contact with my professors, and, I share updates with them. You build that community, build that network. And I think you source your energy from there to just keep on moving up in your career.
Thank you. And also just one quick follow-up. Do you have any advice for building networking? Because sometimes what I right now is doing is what you said, adding people on LinkedIn, but it's hard. It's kind of hard to stay in touch.
I agree. I agree to that point. So I think when I was a student, my scope of networking was just reaching out to people who had similar interests and work background to mine. So food industry is a very big industry. So first, if you know where your interest is it in food safety, food engineering, food technology, food processing? So I was always inclined towards food safety and technology. So I used to look on LinkedIn, like, in different food companies where people are, and just maybe introduce myself to them and then add them in my network. And not just the QA or the directors or the VPs, but also the recruiters, the hiring managers who support these functions within the food industries. So just send them a message. So the benefit I noticed is, especially when I was fortunate to be at Nestle, is that the Nestle recruiters, they do a very good job of advertising on LinkedIn when they are conducting some seminars for students, and they do that throughout the year. So I'll make sure when I see the next post, I will share it with the team here so they can all circulate it to you. They do a tremendous, amazing job of, advertising, having open office hours where everyone can join in. And I think I've posted some in my LinkedIn posts in the past also, where anyone can join in, know about not just food safety, but if you're interested in sales or marketing, they have those sessions where you can sit in, learn about the role, and then use that opportunity to network. So different companies, I think, make different, no, I shouldn't say efforts, but they have different ways of working around how they promote their company also. So they're promoting their company, right? The companies are still looking for more talent. So continue to find people on LinkedIn in your interested companies. Start with identifying first big 10 companies. Okay, I want to see myself in these 10 companies. I want to work in these divisions of these 10 companies. So look at their org chart. And request people, can I please be part of your network? So they post things sometimes. So like, I don't know everything about food industry, but sometimes someone who's an expert in food safety may have posted that, oh, European Union is saying that titanium dioxide will no longer be used. So, okay, I learned something, and then I'll find out where did they find this information from. Okay, this comes from the EU. There's a group on LinkedIn. So then you can join those groups over there to make sure that you do not have to rely on someone else's post, but then you can directly find that source where that information is coming from. So based on your interest, if you start adding people, I think that's how it helps. For me, it has worked, but I hope that's a good advice.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So a quick question, how many students here are graduating this year or looking for internships? Anuj, you're graduating, okay. Aishwarya?
I'm looking for internship. I'm graduating next year.
Okay.
And I'm graduating this year.
Great to know. Congratulations and best wishes with your endeavors. And I'll make sure that, as and when our company is posting something, if I can be that, connection here and bring it back to the college, and I'll see if there are some internships and, so yeah, let's stay connected, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, send me a note. And I think what I would expect from your note is if you could just maybe let me know what area of the food industry you're focused on or interested on. And you may not have decided it yet, but if you have any inclination, that's good to know. Because when I was in college, I knew food safety, but I didn't know what food safety meant at that time. So, I'm not putting you on spot that you have to know something before you reach out to me. If you have inclination, let me know so I can keep my eyes and ears open.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
Okay, time for another question. Anyone else have a question you'd like to ask? I have one on tap here if no one jumps forward.
And I can stop sharing my screen. I didn't realize I'm still sharing because I have the videos, and so we can see everybody here now.
So Isha, here's something that I was thinking about as you were talking. If you had to go back in time to when you were at IIT and knowing what you know now, is there something additional you would have studied or tried to learn while you were here that you didn't think about while you were here?
That kind of, I do reflect a lot on what I would have done differently. But I think when I was at IIT, we got all the courses we needed at that time. And the key one for me was always HACCP, that helps you understand how to assess the hazards and how to understand how to implement the control measures. So for me, I don't think I ever felt that I lacked anything with the programs we had. Those were sufficient, very detailed. I miss all the professors over there. The only thing that, and maybe it's just personally for me, and since we are being, I'm just sharing my experience here. I sometimes feel I should have stayed in Chicago to have more opportunities earlier in my career. So I moved to Virginia, which is a great place. Weather-wise, if you've never been there before, it's a great place. It's not too crowded. When you're growing up in life, you start worrying about, am I going to be in work at 10 minutes or 1 hour? So, other factor-wise, it's a great place. But then I felt that there were limited opportunities for me if I wanted to change a job or get more experience within the industry. But then I had friends who were in either Chicago or New York or California who were closer to or within bigger cities. They had more opportunities to change jobs without having to actually relocate from one place to another. So that's one thing that if I could go back in time, I was getting opportunities in Chicago, but the pay rate was not very good. So I kept on pushing off and I thought, no, I'm going to find a job that is going to pay well. So anyone out there, since I remembered about pay, if you are ever in a job interview, do not tell them what your pay requirements are. Tell them I will wait for the job offer. Okay, because I think and even with with my colleagues or friends that I make here who are from different industries, they're not even in the food industry, and they're always like, oh, I wish I would have asked for a higher pay rate, because 6 months later I realized they could even pay more, but I thought I needed a job. So you need a job, the companies need talent. Do not say a number first. So if you need to find some YouTube, they have so many people who will talk in detail and explain, but do not say the number first. But yeah, that's the only thing that I think of, that when you're looking for a job, because you want to establish your career, make sure you're taking into consideration the geographical location. And for me, my visa was a timing issue. And when I came here, I liked the company. But there was a certain point where I thought, okay, I did everything I was supposed to. I made the programs, people are trained, and now it's kind of not challenging anymore. What more can I learn within the food industry? So I was sort of out of network from a lot of other opportunities. So, and then at some points, food industries do not always want to support relocation as well. So something to just keep in mind. I'm not trying to scare anyone here, or I'm not trying to have this as a therapy session, what went wrong, but I hope that this is helpful, that this is common for everyone. And then don't feel like you're secluded if you find a job in a place which is 1 hour away. Use that opportunity to get experience, give your best, and then you can go up from there in your next career move.
All right, should we offer a bonus point to someone who asks a good question? Everyone's just staring at the screen.
You can ask any question. And see, these sessions, I think, I'm very thankful that our college is organizing such sessions. Use these sessions to practice, feel free to ask questions. Even in interviews, go prepared to ask questions. Don't always feel that, okay, I'm on this side that the interviewer has the right to ask questions. Go in an interview also prepared to understand. So what is my expectation? Okay, I read the job description. It says we have to do this, but then could you explain a little bit more? Like, what are your expectations? Am I going to influence the team in a certain way, or am I just performing duties? And then, will I have key metrics in the business? Just try to understand. And this is something I'm saying now. When I was back in college, like I already told you, I am still an introvert, but I used to ask very technical questions. Okay, what are the next steps of the interview? When will I hear back? But then I gave so many interviews. I'm sure I must have given 500 interviews before getting here, right? So then practice makes you perfect, but don't be nervous. I think if you can learn something from this experience that I'm sharing. Don't be nervous. Ask questions, because only by asking you will know, like, where you are going. Maybe a fruitful discussion will come out from here. So.
Hi, Isha. I have a quick question. So, is there any software required to learn for getting into a career path of quality assurance, or?
No, I think some of the food industries, they post that SAP experience needed, but most of the food companies, they will train you during your onboarding phase. So I don't think there is any specific. So in my field, like food safety and quality, I've used different softwares where we test the samples and record the data. And each company or maybe each department may also have certain specific software. So they will train you. So in my experience, there wasn't anything that in software terms, I would recommend that make sure you have. But if you're interested in food safety, and since my background is in food safety, make sure you are trained in HACCP, and which I think is provided by our college and courses. So make sure you're trained in HACCP, that's the key. And it's also referred to as the FSMA food safety plan. These days, the food industry, especially if you're in food safety, it's not just about food safety plan anymore. So food safety culture, food defense plan, food fraud plan. So these are reviewed in the BRC audits also. So if you want to build your knowledge in terms of food safety, try to understand about the GFSI audits. Because if you apply for QA supervisor roles and if you're pursuing a QA manager career path, then you would need to be familiar with the GFSI auditing schemes. So there are several certification bodies that come under the umbrella of GFSI. They all have their own template, and their auditors will audit the food industries according to that template.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And there may be some specific softwares that other companies are using, but again, in my experience for food safety, I don't think there's any software. Mostly it's a software to record the data. So like, some
it's like ERP software.
Yeah, so that's part
Enterprise
of the
planning.
food training. Yeah, and then at factory level, there are different equipments that are now being used. Again, each company still has different equipments where they monitor the data, they record the data, but then I think the companies know that it is something specific to them, and they would be prepared to train the new employees on that as well. Yeah.
Other questions? Aishwarya, I can see you just want to ask something. You just haven't said it yet.
So who hasn't asked a question yet? No, did you already ask a question?
In the class, we still have Nupur and Catherine and Morgan and Aishwarya and Nirali who haven't asked questions yet.
Okay, I was just looking at your background again, and I was curious a little bit about why you went back to get your law degree that you got in the last few years.
And how can I pronounce your name correctly?
Oh, it's Morgan.
Morgan, thank you, Morgan. Great question. So when I was at the QA manager position at Manel, I sat through several audits. It was a BRC audit scheme that we were following. We would have a different auditor come every year to audit us, and each auditor's interpretation is different. Oh, so you're not testing this, but this is the audit compliance. And sometimes the audit standards would get updated because the international standards have been updated. And once you start sitting in those audits, there's so much more detail. And then my curiosity was, where is that book that can give me the answer? So again, I always feel like I don't want to rely on someone or wait on someone to tell me the answers. So where is that book? And my questions for food safety were in food law. So, pesticide residues internationally are aligned by codex experts, micro standards internationally are aligned by Codex experts. So I wanted to understand more on that. And the food safety plan and food fraud plan, and we were getting more questions in our audit with those FSMA implementations back in 2011, like, are you in compliance and what that means? And back then we did not have a lot of clarity. The business at that time was also exporting some products internationally, and the customers and suppliers did not have an alignment on what are the specifications. So if something was not consistent or accurate, there could have been a recall and stuff like that, right? And again, in a company, you may feel, oh, we have a corporate office, maybe they have all the answers, but that's not always the case. Like, because if the business itself acquired a new business, it's not that there's always equal amount of knowledge sharing. There's always a gap. So the reason why I pursued my Master's of Jurisprudence degree is I wanted to understand food laws and how they affect food safety. So it was a 5-year course, and I learned about, there was separate courses on US food laws, Canadian food laws, European food laws, and how food laws are, who creates those laws for the different countries and how are those interrelated. There was a course on foreign supplier verification program. What is the checklist that you have to comply when you're, importing product into the US? Which are the countries who have similar standards on food safety compared to US? So I came out with a better learning, more confident, and feeling more part of the food industry at that time with that course. To be very honest, I have not leveraged that course in my career journey yet. So I'm still trying to figure out, like, should I network with someone in legal at my work so I could leverage more of that knowledge? So I'm still, in the process of understanding, but as a, professional person, I feel like if I see something in the news, I can make the connections that if you read an article that a supplier or a food industry in US is currently moving towards removing silicon dioxide from their raw materials, you would know that, okay, yes, it was discussed in, it came from the EU laws or from the Codex guidelines, and then everybody eventually will update that. Currently, FDA has not done or not made it a regulation in US yet. So for my personal growth, but like I said, I don't think I've leveraged or, how should I say it? Like, when you study, you really want to make sure you're using that and adding value in your career. So I haven't accomplished that part yet.
Yeah, well, thanks for that answer. That was kind of what I was curious about, like, if you felt that it would, make your career trajectory different than where you are now. But it's interesting that you haven't quite used it yet.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have to check back in a few years and see how you're doing.
That's the place where I'm still networking with my people in my organization and see how I can either work with them as a development opportunity to see if that would align with my career progression, whether it would be in the food quality, safety, or food. Nestle also has a legal division here. So yeah, I'm still in the process of understanding that. I think the first few years I spent in understanding the role itself. So I think I paused there for a moment in terms of my career progression and using the MJ degree. But I feel like I said, it just makes you more aware of what's going on in the industry as a whole. If you can connect the dots, then yeah. Aishwarya, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you that as we have so many subject options here, but if obviously we cannot take every subject, right? So if I'm interested in, for example, in food product development, but if I'm not taking that subject during my master's course, but I want to work in that field and learn about that field, then what do you think? Is it really necessary to focus on the subject, or can we get the knowledge when we start working?
I would definitely recommend you, if you know you're interested in food product development, make sure you take that course, because then through that course, you will have your basic foundation the basic knowledge, right? So I think the food product development course will teach you about the ingredients in the food industry. It may also, the course may have evolved over the last few years. I'm sure we will now be talking about plant-based ingredients, which are new in the food, new trend in the food industry, right? And then it will at least give you the basic foundation of the different food processing techniques. So Nestle has so many businesses. Like I said in the beginning, I only support the meals business. So the product developers who work with meals business, they're familiar with the thermal validation because the products will go through a thermal kill step at the factory. But the product developers who work in baking and beverage have to have a different acumen for a different type of food processing. For example, beverage will be ultra high temperature, pasteurization, and those, depending on what product you're working on. Juices will have different kinds of thermal validations, right? Bakery division will be different, whether it's ready to eat or not ready to eat. So definitely take the course that will set the foundation. And then yeah, I have a friend, Kalyani, Dr. Britt. I don't know if you would remember her. Again, we are from the same batch. And Todd, I'm not sure if that name rings a bell. Kalyani Narayanan, she's in the product development field. So Aishwarya, I can exchange her contact on LinkedIn with you, or if anyone else also would like. And
Sure, that would be great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think take any courses that you think could add value to your, your future interests. Definitely take the course, leverage that opportunity while you're at iFish.
Any other questions? We have a few minutes left. Still waiting for the question. There you go. I was going to say Nupur. So, okay, go ahead.
So can you give us some tips for preparing for technical interviews?
Sure. So I'll share the things that I've done. Okay. So anytime I have an interview, for example, when I was first preparing for my Nestle interview as a quality coordinator, at that time I was not an expert in research, like how to prepare for interviews. So I did my best. And I just researched about the Nestle company and how to create HACCP plans and allergen programs. So I had some of those basics. And when I was being interviewed, my hiring manager asked me those standard questions. And I think she knew at that point of time that she's just graduated and we will have to train and coach her as well. So that was how I got my first job, right? Then for my second job, from the very first point, when I applied, I had the feeling, why will they hire me? I have no background in flour milling. Like all I know about is in India, I would take some wheat kernel, a bag of fresh wheat kernel from when the farmers, in India, they would come right to your street and then we would take it to the local nearby small milling thing. That's all I know about flour milling. Why would they hire me? So I ordered a book from Amazon, Wheat Flour Milling. It's a brown color book. It was $120 something. And I read as much as I could and it made sense. Of course, I did not have any lab experience, like how to calculate the moisture for wheat or flour, how to calculate protein or ash. So I read on YouTube, I saw some videos, and there are few key industries who make equipment for wheat milling. So I went on their websites. So the wheat milling industries, they had pictures of their equipment. They had diagrams. They had explanations on how they clean the wheat, how they grind the wheat. So for a week or two, that's what I did. I learned everything I could about wheat flour milling. And I think my interviewer at that time knew that she has not done anything. She has no actual experience, but she's done her homework, I think. And that's how I got my foot in that job. And then for the senior quality innovation position here at Nestle, I think I did the same thing again. I read as much as I could for Nestle's businesses at that time. And then the key businesses I was being interviewed was again frozen foods. And I think the level of interview or the style of interview for this position was a little bit different. Over here in this role, I was not like a manager, so I don't manage people, but I support people in bringing in safe raw materials for the company. So my main key attribute is how I can influence people or can I coach people, right? So I think that is what my interviewer at Nestle was trying to gauge, like, do I have that kind of personality? Will I be able to influence people if people feel, no, this is not required, we are just going to submit, the supplier is not replying, do we really have to worry about it? Can we just submit the paperwork and be done with it? And would I challenge that? Will I question that? Or will I be just like, okay, if someone is saying, that's fine. And then at some point in your career, you're not always working with people who have graduated. Some people who've been in the industry for 20 years, some are new to the industry. You're all working together. So I think they want to know if you can challenge. So at different points in your career, or maybe for different types of role, your interviewer would be looking for different characteristics in you. It's not just your education background, your work experience, but how you have prepared for the interview, and are you able to speak up, challenge, question? Do you have the industry know-how? So I don't mean to broaden the scope too much, but I think if you can fit yourself where you are in your career right now and then prepare accordingly. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any last minute questions? Well, Isha, I feel like this has been a tremendous conversation. You've shared a lot of things, very personal things, I think, about what you've done and the approaches you take to things. I in this last question that you answered, I can see you put in a lot of work for these interviews, and I don't think most people would even think to do the amount of research into the position and what you might need to know as what you said. I think you've given some excellent advice. And I think our students would be fools not to hook up with you and on LinkedIn and take advantage of your network and the experiences that you have. We really appreciate you coming and speaking with us today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm thankful for now being in a position to come back to my college and helping the students. I think I received tremendous amount of help when I was at iFish, and it's just a fortunate opportunity. And soon I think everyone on this call will have the tables turned and will be helping the other students. I think that's how we support everyone. So thank you for having me here today. And please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, do not hesitate. I am still in contact with my seniors at college. They still help me. And I just don't reach out to them for technical questions. Sometimes if I'm not even having a good day, I send them a message. And you just stay in contact with each other. You are a community, right there. So that's your support system.
So how do they connect with you on LinkedIn? How do they get you specifically?
If you find me with Isha Chadha, Cube ID, I think you'll see me there. It's the same. Or if I could share can I share my LinkedIn?
Yeah, actually it requires your email address to connect. So
Okay. Sorry, let me put my email address in the chat here.
That would be great.
Thanks for reminding me about that.
Perfect. So thank you again. I'm going to end our recording now.